review of UN action at the end of the civil war in 2009 noted what is quoted as systemic failure of the different parts of the UN. Member states did not meet the tasks they themselves had set. The UN system did not adapt properly when the final brutal stage of the conflict called for a broader UN presence, which up to that point in Sri Lanka had been focused on development. A main lesson we are to draw from this experience is to ensure that the UN system has political and human rights expertise and resources in place when and where they are needed. Equally important is to recognize that human rights violations, this is a very important point to me, human rights violations are our best early warning signals in emerging crises. And of course, that we must act on such signals and have the courage to speak out about what we see. On behalf of the Secretary General, I have led this internal scrutiny for the last 7 or 8 months. And the work goes on to implement these recommendations. And this is a very important work both for the UN and, of course, its member states. Sri Lanka, this has been one of our most inspiring tasks the last 6-7 months to work with this team, with these people. First, Charles Peters' report and Michael Keating's, and it was such a good experience also to notice that the sometimes turf mentality that occurs in a big organization wasn't evident. The different departments worked very determinedly in coming to good conclusions and really very substantive conclusions from the Sri Lanka failure. And I think there are 3 areas where we will need to do better. And one, of course, is to enhance the culture of awareness of human rights all over, not only among those who deal with human rights, but in any country team, and all of us should have that human rights dimension. It is, after all, the 3rd pillar of the United Nations. No peace without development, no development without peace, and none of the above without respect of human rights. I would add today rule of law also. So the human rights sector will hopefully be strengthened, and with the support, I hope, of member states, because we have to have the member states on board for this process. Then I'm very interested in prevention, practical aspects of prevention. I see really what I said here, that the human rights violations are the best sign of crisis coming. When you feel those vibrations in the ground, and the kids can't go to school because of their color or ethnic background or clan, whatever, and when the father is tortured, comes back, then that's where you said, this is going to be very bad. And I would hope also that the Security Council would remember that they should act on threats to international peace and security and get in there early. So I think if we have a stronger awareness, almost an automatic reaction when there are human rights violations, what steps do you take to prevent this from going into the disaster, which then costs us so much in terms of lives, money, reputation, and night's sleep? That's what we need to do. Second aspect, protection of civilians. I think there is a false artificial line between human rights concerns and protection of civilians. In fact, protection of civilians is necessary because we have failed to listen to the warning signals earlier on. But then, during that protection of civilian period, there are massive violations of human rights. So I would hope that the human rights and the humanitarian community would come together. If there are problems, I offer to mediate between them, because I've experienced both. And the last thing is the self-critical part. We need to act much faster. In Sri Lanka, we had an operation which was basically development. And here comes a huge crisis with massive human rights violations, conflict, war. And we didn't have the resources, the team, the persons in place to deal with it and report back, and for us to go to the Security Council and make the issues. So we need to act much faster. That's the 3rd thing. When I gave the report to the Secretary after I myself had worked on it a little bit, I suggested then that we would not go public until we could prove that we are doing something about it. Because I think there are so many reports, you believe these reports. So we now have a period of implementing this in the different parts of the UN, and also starting to have dialogue with member states. The Secretary mentioned it in his speech. You may have discovered it in the speech at the 24th of September. And I spoke about it today. This is part of the gradual launch of it, and then we will present it more formally a bit later when we feel that we have delivered and that we have growing support of member states and the system. So that's the plan.